Hi everyone. Today we're going to dive into the book The Lean Startup by Ries. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's jump right in. In today's fast-paced world, where countless startups rise and fall overnight, success often seems like a game of luck. However, Ries, an entrepreneur and thought leader in business innovation, argues otherwise. In The Lean Startup, he unveils a systematic, scientific approach to entrepreneurship that can dramatically increase the chances of success, not only for Silicon Valley tech companies, but for businesses of all types. Ries, who co-founded IMVU and learned from both failure and success, developed the Lean Startup methodology as a response to the chaotic, inefficient ways in which many startups operate. His ideas, build, measure, learn, pivot or persevere, minimum viable product, innovation accounting, and engines of growth, revolutionize the way businesses approach uncertainty, innovation, and scalability. But this book is not just about startups. Ries argues that entrepreneurship is everywhere and can thrive in large corporations, non-profits, and even government institutions. By applying lean thinking, companies of any size can innovate faster, reduce waste, and build products that customers actually want. So, what makes The Lean Startup more than just another business book? It challenges the traditional notions of success and failure, encouraging entrepreneurs to experiment, learn, and adapt at an unprecedented pace. Whether you're launching a new product, managing an innovation team, or just curious about how modern businesses thrive, The Lean Startup offers a compelling roadmap for turning ideas into reality. Entrepreneurs are everywhere. Entrepreneurship is not limited to small startups operating out of garages. Any organization, big or small, can foster entrepreneurship as long as it is working on innovative ideas under conditions of extreme uncertainty. Ries redefines the traditional image of an entrepreneur. He argues that entrepreneurship is not confined to Silicon Valley tech startups, but is a universal concept that can be applied in any industry. He writes, "You don't have to work in a garage to be in a startup. The concept of entrepreneurship includes anyone who works within my definition of a startup, a human institution designed to create new products and services under conditions of extreme uncertainty." This means that even within large corporations, employees who create new products or services in an uncertain environment are, in essence, entrepreneurs. Ries gives examples of internal innovators in companies like Intuit, demonstrating that lean principles can work in a variety of settings. Entrepreneurship is management. Startups are not just products. They are organizations that need structured management tailored for uncertainty. Traditional management techniques focus on efficiency and predictable outcomes, which do not align with the chaotic and unpredictable nature of startups. Ries argues that entrepreneurship itself is a form of management and requires a distinct approach. He states, "A startup is an institution, not just a product, and so it requires a new kind of management specifically geared to its context of extreme uncertainty." He criticizes the typical just-do-it approach of many entrepreneurs, which often leads to disorganized execution and failure. Instead, he suggests that startups need structured management systems that allow for agility and continuous learning. Validated learning. Startups exist not to build products, but to learn how to create a sustainable business. This learning should be validated through rigorous experimentation. Ries emphasizes that learning is the key goal of a startup, not just making products or generating revenue. However, learning alone is not enough. It must be validated through experiments that test hypotheses. He writes, "Validated learning is not after-the-fact rationalization or a good story designed to hide failure. It is a rigorous method for demonstrating progress when one is embedded in the soil of extreme uncertainty in which startups grow." He illustrates this with his experience at IMVU, where the team initially spent months building features that customers didn't want. Through validated learning, they discovered what their users actually needed and adjusted their strategy accordingly. Build, measure, learn. Startups should follow a continuous cycle of building, measuring, and learning to improve their product iteratively. At the heart of the lean startup methodology is the build, measure, learn feedback loop. Ries explains, "The fundamental activity of a startup is to turn ideas into products, measure how customers respond, and then learn whether to pivot or persevere. All successful startup processes should be geared to accelerate that feedback loop. Instead of following a rigid business plan, startups should quickly build a minimum viable product, MVP, measure customer reactions, and learn from the data. This rapid experimentation reduces waste and ensures that resources are focused on what truly matters to customers." Minimum viable product. An MVP is the simplest version of a product that allows a startup to begin the learning process as quickly as possible. A common mistake among entrepreneurs is spending years developing a perfect product before launching. Ries argues that startups should create an MPV, a stripped-down version of their product, to test key hypotheses. He states, "A minimum viable product, MVP, helps entrepreneurs start the process of learning as quickly as possible. It is simply the fastest way to get through the build, measure, learn feedback loop with the minimum amount of effort." He gives the example of Groupon, which started with just a basic WordPress blog offering daily deals. Instead of building an elaborate platform, they tested the concept quickly and adjusted based on customer response. Pivot or persevere. At a certain point, every startup must decide whether to keep refining its current strategy or pivot to a new approach. Startups operate under uncertainty, and their initial hypotheses about customers and markets are often incorrect. The decision to pivot, change strategy, or persevere, keep improving the same idea, is critical. Ries states, "Every entrepreneur eventually faces an overriding challenge in developing a successful product, deciding when to pivot and when to persevere." Everything that has been discussed so far is a prelude to a seemingly simple question. Are we making sufficient progress to believe that our original strategic hypothesis is correct? Or do we need to make a major change? He emphasizes that this is not just about avoiding failure, but about maximizing learning. A structured pivot allows companies to take the lessons from their current efforts and apply them to a refined approach rather than blindly sticking to a failing idea. Innovation accounting. Startups need a new way to measure progress, as traditional financial metrics are not suitable for early-stage businesses. Most startups rely on misleading vanity metrics that make them look successful without showing real progress. Instead, Ries introduces innovation accounting, a method of measuring learning, progress, and business sustainability. He writes, "To answer these kinds of questions, startups have a strong need for a new kind of accounting geared specifically to disruptive innovation. That's what innovation accounting is." Innovation accounting involves 3 steps. Establish a baseline with a minimum viable product, MVP, to collect initial data. Systematically adjust and optimize based on experiments. make a pivot, or persevere decision based on whether optimizations are yielding significant improvements. This approach forces startups to focus on what truly drives sustainable growth rather than superficial metrics. Small batches and rapid experimentation. Working in small batches allows startups to learn faster, reduce waste, and iterate efficiently. Inspired by lean manufacturing, Ries argues that small, rapid iterations help startups discover and fix problems sooner. He compares this approach to Toyota's production system. The biggest advantage of working in small batches is that quality problems can be identified much sooner. He highlights that in entrepreneurship, working in small batches prevents wasted effort. Instead of spending months developing a perfect product, startups should launch smaller iterations, gather feedback, and refine their approach. If the customer doesn't want the product we're building, finding out sooner is much better than finding out later. At IMVU, Ries's own startup, they released updates continuously rather than in large, infrequent batches. This allowed them to test changes immediately, rather than waiting months for a major release. Engines of growth. Startups grow sustainably by focusing on one of three growth engines: sticky, viral, or paid. Sustainable growth does not happen by chance. Ries identifies three distinct engines that drive a startup's expansion. Sticky engine of growth: retaining existing customers by offering a compelling experience. Viral engine of growth: acquiring customers through word of mouth, like social media sharing. Paid engine of growth: using advertising or sales to acquire customers, ensuring that revenue per customer is higher than the cost of acquisition. He emphasizes that startups should focus on one engine at a time. Companies that attempt to build a dashboard that includes all three engines tend to cause a lot of confusion. I strongly recommend that startups focus on one engine at a time. By tracking the right metrics for their chosen engine, startups can refine their strategy and avoid distractions. Lean thinking beyond startups. Lean startup principles are not just for startups. They can be applied to large companies, government agencies, and nonprofits. While the lean startup is primarily aimed at new ventures, Ries argues that the methodology can help any organization innovate. He notes, as a successful startup makes the transition to an established company, it will be well poised to develop the kind of culture of disciplined execution that characterizes the world's best firms, such as Toyota. For example, Intuit applied lean startup principles to QuickBooks, allowing them to release updates in smaller batches, gather real-world feedback, and improve customer satisfaction. Ries envisions a future where organizations use innovation accounting, rapid experimentation, and validated learning to drive long-term success, even in large bureaucratic settings. Conclusion. Ries doesn't promise a magic formula for success. There is none. Instead, the lean startup provides a disciplined, systematic way to navigate uncertainty, test ideas, and make informed decisions. By embracing validated learning, small batch development, and innovation accounting, entrepreneurs can avoid the pitfalls of wasted effort and instead focus on what truly drives growth. Perhaps the most powerful message of the book is that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey. The difference between a failed startup and a thriving business lies in how quickly one learns and adapts. Whether you're an aspiring founder, a corporate innovator, or just someone fascinated by how businesses evolve, The Lean Startup is a must-read. It redefines what it means to be an entrepreneur in the modern world and offers a blueprint for turning uncertainty into opportunity.